کنفرانس بین المللی ایران آزاد قیام برای تغییر رژیم 29 ژوئن 2018.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this really important gathering, and we are all here from all parts of the world on a mission to be able to highlight what people in Iran are facing. We need to be a coalition of voices that unite together to be able to ensure that the world knows of the oppression of human rights within Iran. We need to demonstrate that globally the rights of humans, whether they are in Iran or anywhere else, are basic human rights. We can strengthen the resolve of the people that are fighting inside of Iran. I have been a parliamentarian for 12 years, and I've been involved with this issue for the 12 years as a parliamentarian. It is for all of us. And if there are some of you who have been here a lot longer than me, who have seen how we have seen the changes going on in Iran, and what we know is that the people who have battled for such a long time rely on us as their hope. And therefore it is incumbent upon us, if we are true democrats, to be able to ensure that that democratic voice is heard. Thank you very much indeed.
Iran is a relatively young country with a long history. It has been very difficult, I think, for the Western press to actually get a full flavour of what has gone on in Iran because of the way that news is kept under wraps and protests are minimised. Clearly, the scenes that we saw in the video have been repeated recently with further such demonstrations against the oppression that is taking place, against the lack of food, against the lack of human rights in the country. And I think the demonstrations have actually, which has spread like wildfire across the country, I think it has hidden, in my considered judgment, hidden the fact that Iran is still preparing for nuclear weapons and the capability to deliver them. Otherwise, why have intercontinental ballistic missiles? So it's quite clear that we need regime change in Iran, and the 10-point plan of the NCRI with Maryam Rajavari is quite clearly a one that all of us as Democrats can support. And we sit or stand in solidarity with the people. But it's quite clear that the regime in Tehran is living on borrowed time and has no future. And if we send no other message, it is quite clear they have failed the Iranian people, and it's time for them to go, especially the young people who make up 2/3 of the population, and the women who are more than 50% of the population who have been severely suppressed. So thank you for attending, and let's hope we have a good conference.
Last year, when we attended this gathering in Paris, we all took the view that the people of Iran do not want the ruling theocracy, and that the regime only holds power through domestic repression and support for terrorism. Well, 1 year passed, events in Iran and the development in the Middle East proved these assertions. The world has witnessed ongoing popular protests against the regime across Iran since the beginning of 2018, as Bob, my colleague and friend, has already said. And it is now clear to every observer, and even the regime officials, that the theocracy days are numbered. The international community, although this is the most challenging world leaders of my lifetime, the international community must come together and support the democratic aspirations of the Iranian people for a genuine change in their country. My colleagues and I in the House of Commons and the House of Lords have worked in a cross-party fashion on so many occasions, expressing support for the Iranian people and the just resistance movement, the NCRI, who seek a free and democratic Iran. Sadly, both the United Kingdom government and the European Union, I believe, are holding behind the nuclear deal and have been very passive in holding the regime leaders to account for their brutal crackdown of protests in the country and support for terrorism abroad. We have petitioned our own government and the European Union leaders to change their appeasing policies towards Tehran, because it is not only morally right to do so, but also it is in the best interests of the United Kingdom and the European Union. One of the ways to do this is for the European Union to send a signal to the regime in Tehran by prescribing the entire Islamic Resistance Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. Our allies, the United States and Canada, have already taken this step earlier this year. A prescription of the IRGC will benefit the people not only of Iran by denying this repressive paramilitary force funds, which is otherwise could divert to step up its democratic repression. It means that the malign intervention in the region will actually change things. This then can be followed by punitive measures against the Iranian regime's leaders and senior officials for their role in systematic human rights abuses in Iran for the last 4 decades. Finally, I believe it is now time for all European nations to recognize the Iranian resistance movement, the NCRI. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is an Iranian alternative that deserves international support because it provides the best viable Iranian option to solve the many crises and serious threats which we face in terms of the regime in Tehran. The Iranian people have risen up for democratic change. They are on the streets every day, engaging in strikes and demonstrations, despite taking great personal risks. So the Western democracies, particularly the European Union and the United Kingdom, must stand with the Iranian people and not their oppressors. We can do so by supporting the Iranian people and the NCRI to bring about the change that the Iranian people are demanding and so deserve.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the one that got away. And I must say, it's delightful to be in the real world again. But this year's event is different from previous years, not least because of the nationwide uprisings which we are regularly witnessing in Iran. It was always hard to claim that the regime had popular legitimacy or support, but it's now becoming increasingly clear that the great mass of Iranian society does not support the ruling theocracy. On the contrary, they are regularly taking to the streets in their tens of thousands to demonstrate their opposition. When nationwide protests erupted in Iran in 2009, the Iranian regime immediately attacked the PMOI camp in Iraq with a barrage of rockets. The message was clear. The Iranian regime saw the PMOI and the NCRI as a threat because of their ability to unite popular dissent and organize protest in the country. We've come a long way since then. Today, many PMOI members live safely in Albania, and protests are going on daily in Iran. It is now evident that the country is heading for change, and senior regime officials, including the supreme leader, admit to the important role played by the organized opposition, the PMI, and their senior colleagues, the NCRI, in support of these protests. If the international community wants change to be meaningful, it must back the Iranian alternative proposed by NCRI and its president-elect, Mrs. Maryam Rajavi. The NCRI has considerable support among both the Iranian diaspora and the Iranian people, despite the regime's frantic efforts to claim otherwise. The truth of the matter is that it's time we impressed upon our leaders that they need to come out in vocal support again and again and again, and point out to the Iranian regime that a medieval theocracy is unacceptable in the world we live in today.
Thank you. I feel really privileged to be here again to support the remarkable things that are happening in Iran at the moment. It is extraordinary that we should see these things happening, but about time too. I'm here as a Christian leader. Clearly, I've dressed the part. I'm one of nearly, well, actually, certainly, at least 75 Church of England bishops who've now signed a statement which has gone from Archbishop Rowan Williams' office, making the demand, really, to the international community that we pressurize Iran to stop the extraordinary abuse of human rights, in particular on religious and ethnic minorities. I can actually assure you that getting 75 bishops to sign something, the same thing, is really quite an achievement. I've never known it happen before. But we do believe in one thing. We do believe in God, and also what the three Abrahamic faiths believe, which is the core values of love and peace and justice. That is, we base our faiths on love, we live in peace, supposedly, and we express that in justice. And that's not what's going on in Iran today. Here we have a regime oppressing its people and exporting terrorism. So the whole regime, indeed the whole region, the whole world, indeed, is under threat from all of this. Now, as we know, I'm sure most of us know that the regime has been condemned 64 times by United Nations bodies of different kinds. And the people of Iran themselves are now speaking with huge courage. Protests in 140 cities. They're on the streets, they're in the bazaars, it's the truck drivers, the shopkeepers, the ordinary people, they are out there now. I've retired now as Bishop of Oxford, but passion for justice doesn't retire. And so I'm very glad to join my voice to the tens of thousands, indeed 100,000 people. And indeed, I bring not just my voice, but remember those 75 bishops, we've got them together, the voices, that is, of the majority of Church of England bishops, who say that unhealthy religion doesn't help anybody. And this theocratic regime is so unhealthy. So I gladly offer our support, representing a lot of Christians, a lot of bishops. May this change come soon.
Thank you.
It's a great privilege to be able to be here this evening with you and to say a few words about the current uprising of our sisters and brothers in Iran. I have to make it very clear, as a former leader of Britain's biggest union and a former president of the British Trade Union Congress, that international solidarity is a fundamental principle of our commitment to trade unionism. And I think it's vital that people understand that in spite of decades of repression by the Iranian regime against the formation of independent trade unions, against any kind of representation, the workers have organized and are now demonstrating their feelings in public. Now, the workers are also not just objecting to the regime, but they're objecting to the economic chaos, the economic crisis caused by this regime. They have managed to destroy the currency, which is in free fall, and in particular, they've managed to ruin the money they received as sanctions were lifted. Billions of dollars have been lost by the mullahs, much of it going to the Revolutionary Guard, and much of it going to activities in countries like Syria and Lebanon and elsewhere. So Iran is a pariah state. Iran is a regime that must be overthrown. We have an important role to play, stimulating, urging, and resisting. And we give our support to the National Council of Resistance, to Maryam Rajavi, and to all those brave people currently in action in 140 cities in Iran.